Jamie Vardy, the Leicester City podcast by Leicester City fans for Leicester City fans. Joined tonight by a full house of all the guys, and also Elliot Butlin from A View from Eddie to Leicester City and Leicester Tigers. Not podcast, what's the right word for you there?
So it started off as a blog,
yeah.
blogging about all things Tigers and City. And then from there, it's offshooted into a separate Tigers podcast as well. So, no, thank you very much for having me. Delighted to be here.
Yeah. What's your Tigers podcast called? Is that Rolling Mall?
That's it. That's exactly it.
Yeah. How's that going?
It's good. I mean, we timed it pretty well last year as our first season, just as Tigers had a good season themselves, obviously ended up being league champions. So, to be fair, it makes our life a lot easier talking about games where we win. Whereas if we'd have done it a few years ago where Tigers were second from bottom for most of the season, it's slightly harder to talk about and discuss. So no, we similar sort of setups this, do it for the fans, from fans, and so it's all good fun.
I'm going to steal my line. You were there, Steve, weren't you, back in
I was at Twickers, yeah. I consumed a rather large amount of alcohol that day, before, during and after the game. And great to be back at the top again. And what a transformation in really 18 months or something since Borthwick's been there. And a good name for a Tigers podcast, Rolling Moor.
Yeah, it was very apt, I think. I think it's about as suitable a name as we could get for it, to be fair.
Well, we're grateful for you joining us today for the show. We've got Barry in for his first show of the season as well. He's got his Villa shirt on today. Probably a few tears been dried into that, Baz, I imagine.
There certainly has been this weekend. Very disappointing.
What happened?
Nothing. That's the problem. Nothing happened. Nothing's been learned since last season. Nothing's happened through pre-season, and Steven Gerrard is clearly a fraud.
Well, on that note, we'll move on to say hello to him. Steven Gerrard's clearly a fraud. Gerrard out after one game, Baz, yeah?
I think I was campaigning that pretty much most of last season. He's not the man for us.
Well, Scott Parker was bemoaning the fact he hasn't got a squad fit for the Premier League.
Yeah, and still turned us over. So that says it all.
Well, there we go. Aidan, you had the Irish Charity Shield on Saturday. You spoke about that on our podcast on Saturday. Give us a bit of an update as to what went down to lift that trophy for the Crews.
For the Crews, yeah, to lift the coveted Charity Shield. So it was actually the first time they played the Charity Shield since 2017. Not pretty tepid first half, but Crusaders really kicked on in the second half and looked good with a 2-0 victory. Really nice goal from veteran winger Paul Heatley, lobbing the keeper from just outside the box, or just inside the box, right? So yeah, put a smile on my face. I'm in love with football.
Was it Linfield reserves they played, was that?
Linfield might have one eye on their Europa League tie against FC Zurich this week, but that takes nothing away from our victory.
Silverware, isn't it?
They might be the only silver we get, like Leicester City last season, so have to make the most of it.
That's a good point. Tom, we were down there yesterday. Have you recovered?
Yeah, I have recovered. Disappointing, but I think for the most part we showed that we've not completely fallen apart as a team. So, mixed feelings about yesterday.
Well, we'll come on to that as we go through. But Elliot, I'll start off with you. What's a match day look like for you? Because it's great to get back down there again, isn't it, after the summer break?
Yeah, I must say my sort of match days changed a little bit. So before, up until November last year, I used to live on Denmark Road, opposite Leicestershire Cricket Club. So my match day was quite straightforward because you could sort of mosey down whatever time you wanted to and head into the cricketers for a pre-match beer if I wanted to, or just get some cans and just drink at home and wander down. So moving to Melton, my match day sort of changed somewhat. So I'm sort of at the mercy of whatever time I can get into Leicester now and decide where I can park up and go down. So it's not quite as relaxed and easy as it used to be.
No, I remember the days when I was at uni at De Montfort and could wake up at 2:00 in the afternoon and get down there still with the time for a pint before kickoff. It was great. It's a bit different now though. But presumably you went down there with some high hopes yesterday. I know we haven't signed anyone, but pretty much a fully fit squad, and against a side in the second season syndrome for Brentford. Do you think we're going to get 3 points?
Yeah, I thought I've sort of been on a little bit of a journey throughout pre-season where you start off in a bit of a not quite a full negative mindset, but you can feel a bit sort of hacked off with how things played out last year. But as pre-season progressed, and the more you think about it, the more you start thinking, actually, there's enough going for us to think we're having a good season. As the pre-season progressed, you're starting to see some patterns of play, some goals being scored, tightening up at the back. And I thought actually we were going into it off the back of a fairly good pre-season. The boys have been together, for the first time probably in 3 or 4 years almost. It felt like we've actually had a proper pre-season where they've had 4 or 5 weeks together, implementing some ideas, implementing some new tactics and getting the fitness right. So you go into yesterday's game fairly confident. You're at home, good pre-season. With all due respect to Brentford, they're a good side, but they're probably one of the better teams you can have first game of the season to get 3 points. So you go into the game, on the sun being out obviously helps as well. So you go into the game in fairly good spirits, to be fair. So yeah, I sort of walked into the ground a bit belatedly because of the queues outside the stadium.
Did you get caught in that, did you, yesterday?
Yeah, I rocked up at half an hour beforehand and it was just manic pretty much everywhere. So I think that needs a bit of bedding in, I think, for the rest of it.
This is the new mobile ticketing that's going to speed everything up, that slows everything down. So me and Tom
it should speed it up. Do people not know how to scan a mobile ticket? I mean,
but they've changed the way you put your season ticket in and everything, Steve. It's all changed. Your actual physical card, that's changed now as well.
Yeah, I was trying to work out if it was system error or personnel error. I have a sneaky suspicion it was probably more of the latter than the actual system. But who am I to say?
We're getting to the crux of the problems from yesterday already now, so that's a good start. But most of us were feeling really positive, Aidan, and apart from you, who had us down for a draw. What made you think we weren't going to pick 3 points at this today?
Had us down for a 2-2 draw, in fact.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, I'm sitting proudly on top of the prediction league, Elliot. I guess just as we were speaking about on Saturday, just the lack of signings, and my big fear is this could turn into a backwards season in terms of whether we'll lose anyone else before or more than one player before the transfer window. I guess the main thing is I wasn't sure where the players' heads were, and if the fact that Fofana seems to want away and where Maddison's state of mind is, and that kind of made me think that psychologically we mightn't have the mettle for it if Brentford really go at us. So things did turn out a bit differently in the match in terms of how it went than maybe I expected, but the result was there, and maybe Brentford came at us later in the game than I thought they would, and we kind of didn't quite know how to handle them whenever they changed their tactics. So yeah, that's what I thought would happen. Maybe just I thought we might go behind rather than take the lead.
That's a long way around to say that your glass is half empty there, Aidan.
Sorry, I'm working that.
Just Steve, when the team news came through, was there any surprises in that for you? I think we looked at it, me and Tom, and saw Amati in there instead of Siyunku, which in hindsight obviously might not have been the correct decision. I think he had a bit of a tough afternoon yesterday, Dan Amati. But was there any surprises in the lineup or the formation?
No, I thought, we had a discussion, didn't we, on Saturday about this. There's always a chance he was going to go through at the back and get width from the wing backs, and being as we were short of wingers for the game. So we thought that was a possibility. I think why Kaggs didn't get in case of Amati instead of Amati, that was a bit of a surprise. I was surprised to see him in the back three. But I've not watched them train and everything else. There must be something about what Kaggs isn't doing or Amati's been doing in training that made Brendan go that way, or is because Amati's not even left-footed, he's right-footed, isn't he? So I'm not sure. It was a bit of a surprise, but we don't know what's gone on behind the scenes. Other than that, I wasn't too surprised now.
Did you catch the game yesterday, Baz? Did you see any of it?
didn't, unfortunately. I was around at my dad's, and he's a United fan, so I had to watch that. Well, actually, it was quite entertaining, to be fair. But yeah, I had to watch that game. But I saw the highlights. When I saw obviously looked at the lineup and whatnot, and I didn't think it was that bad. To be fair to Amartey, at the end of the season, he wasn't terrible. Yeah. So maybe I thought that was the right choice, because Sioncho wasn't that. Granted, there's been pre-season, but I think if you have to go with a kind of momentum, Amartey deserved this chance. Yeah. So when it came to lineups, I wasn't too disappointed. I actually thought this is strong, and I'm glad he went back to the back three. I thought that was going to pay off.
I described the first hour yesterday as champagne football. Unfortunately, it was followed by 30 minutes of flat champagne or Prosecco.
Nasty spumante, I think.
Yeah.
Lamborghini.
Carver.
Yeah. But the first hour was really, really good. Those questions around Wesley Fofana and was he going to be there? Elliot, he was absolutely superb, wasn't he, for that first hour? And probably, to be fair to him, throughout the whole game yesterday, he was like a Rolls Royce at the back.
Yeah, absolute pleasure to watch him. And for that first hour, I don't think it was just Fofana, to be fair. I think you could make a case for all 11 that were on the pitch that, for the first hour, we looked good value for a 2-0 lead. You looked solid at the back. We were controlling in the midfield. We looked fairly dangerous going forward. I think at halftime we'd had 4 or 5 chances and tested the keeper a couple of times. So, in all intents and purposes, Danny Ward in goal, he was looking solid as well. So in all aspects of the pitch, we looked fairly solid for that first 60, 65 minutes. And, if we talk about specifically Fofana, I'd probably say it was probably the jewel of the back three, to be fair. He was winning his battles both in the air and on the floor. Really good distribution, looked comfortable with the ball at his feet. A couple of real nice tackles from when the ball got into their centre forwards. And, and it decided into that feeling of, we go 2-0 up and just felt solid. And I don't really feel in that first 60, 65 minutes, Brentford had much of a sniff or much of a chance. And you sit there and go, actually, this is looking fairly good. And, obviously, we've all spoken about different concerns we may have had going into to the game. At that point, after 60 minutes, you're feeling a little bit comfortable and you're feeling fairly solid and looking forward. You're almost looking forward to the rest of the season. You think if that's what it's going to be, you're starting to get into the season a lot more.
It's time for a bit of a confession from me. I turned to Tom at about 61, 62 minutes and said, there's some comparisons here from 15-16. We're playing against a team in red and white, first game of the season. We're absolutely duffing them. I said, this is going to be 4 or 5. I'm pretty sure I said to you, Tom, didn't I? It's going to be 4 or 5.
Yeah,
It just looks like we were in so much control of the game. We'd hit the post twice. We've come close on a couple more occasions. We were in total control of that football match. Yeah,
absolutely. We were in total control. We were actually allowed a bit of space to play with flair. And the confidence levels. I mean, to be fair, going to the ground, I felt like my confidence with what I thought how we were going to play was growing as I got there. And, the fans around us were all quite positive as well. But yeah, now as the match went on and on, you did think, God, we're going to get 3 or 4 here. And then one goal turns it around and we just absolutely crumbled.
We'll come on to the reason why we think we crumbled shortly. Aidan, have you got your hand up there? It's very formal.
Very formal. I was just going to ask, I'm going from Match of the Day 2 highlights, but I was just going to ask you, did there seem to be a 5-minute spell where that champagne went flat quite suddenly that you guys noticed? Or was it the first goal? I know Match of the Day 2 picked up on the substitutions and the change that Brentford made at 59, 60 minutes, going to a back three, and kind of they were picking up that we didn't seem to know how to respond to that. But did it seem quite sudden that you thought, actually, we're not going to win 5-0 here, we're going to struggle?
Yeah, from what they scored, I think. Tom, Elliot, would you agree with that? The whole atmosphere changed, I think.
Yeah, there was a very noticeable sort of backing off. I think the changes got made by Brentford, and it was almost as if we've reverted to type where we just go, we've got a 2-0 lead, we'll take it, see you later, and try and go back to the wall. And for me, we're not a back to the wall team anymore. Over the last 2 or 3 years, we've shown that under Brendan, we are not that sort of team, and that's fine. It's not a criticism in itself. You just have to accept that we're not that sort of team. You have to keep on going and play. You have to keep it going in the sort of original strategy that you are. And it did feel that the changes that Brentford made, we sort of responded to that by not really pressing as much as we had done, or our recovery work in the midfield completely dropped off. They then get the goal, and suddenly all of those things which we've just discussed became more pronounced, because we then make a substitution, which I'm sure we'll get onto, is that at that point, all control of the midfield completely went from it. And it was almost acceleration of all of that came together. So therefore, the next half an hour, 25 minutes after the goal is a perfect encapsulation of all of those problems coming together. And at that point, we never really claimed any sort of foothold in the game again.
Yeah, all I'd say is I only listened to it, right? But I listened to the whole game and then watched the highlights afterwards. And we were so well in control. It could have been 3 or 4 easy, and we were comfortable. It sounded like we were very comfortable at the back. But what Jerry Taggart noticed before we conceded is we just started to get sloppy. So even Fofana gave the ball away in a dangerous area. Nothing happened about it. But if you look at the 2 goals, and I know Marty's got a slagging, but Maddison and others just dangled legs. They didn't get in and tackle, and everything started to get sloppy. We were missing passes, and Didi was doing that a lot as well. We weren't pressing the same way as we were before, and we were missing tackles. So everything started to get a little bit sloppy. Now, whether that's tired minds, and Roger should have made more changes in the heat first match and everything else, probably should have done. Because tired minds lead to mistakes, but you don't tighten up at the back or say we'll stick with 2-0 by putting a forward on and taking a midfielder off. It just didn't work, right? And I think it's because of the sloppiness, and they lost their concentration and focus basically. And once the goal went in, there was a bit of panic, wasn't there?
I have to say, as a neutral though, the goal was good. Do you know, like the pass? I don't know who made the pass to Tony. That pass was brilliant. I watched it a couple of times. I was trying to put like a Leicester head on and just go like, how could that have been stopped? And the only thing I could see that stopped that was Yuri getting to the midfielder faster. But he was going in relatively fast. I think sometimes you just have to chalk off the goal being excellent, because it was an excellent goal.
Well, Marty was the wrong side of him, though.
Of Tony.
Yeah,
maybe so, but Tony did everything he needs to do as a top striker. I thought it was fantastic. Yes, it was a fantastic goal.
Good player. Yes, Aidan, you've got your hand up again.
You know, in watching it, trying to be respectful. Part of the issue is Johnny Evans runs out, doesn't he? And Justin's a little bit behind Evans, but not much. And then Amarte's, you know, another few yards back, and you know, that was an issue. You know, they just didn't all come out as together. You know, Evans
but
is on his way out.
Part of that, I think, was because it was Amartey that took the throw in, right? So he's trying to get back from the throw in because we lost it straight away, where the others are pulling out. So he was mentally, I think he was a little bit behind. Justin and Evans had decided to come out. He was trying to get back to mark his man, and in the end was caught in no man's land, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Of course, no chance for Danny Ward on really either of the 2 goals. Tom, how did you think he did yesterday? It was good. He got a good level of support, didn't he, from the crowd?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. He was not at fault at all for either of the goals. Yeah, I mean, early doors he was coming and collecting the ball, wasn't he? And he looked full of confidence. The crowd was all behind him as well. Obviously, a bit unusual for us to not have Schmeichel there, but. Yeah, I thought he did really well. Kind of all the corners, all the balls that were coming in, he was going for it, commanding his box well. He was passing around the back, and it didn't feel as if we were under pressure or in danger when he was doing it. So yeah, I think it's a positive step for him.
I mean, it was very much a 50-50 as who was going to get their gloves going into that, Steve. Now Danny Ward's got them. And with the comments that Brendan Rodgers made before about having 2 number 1s when Schmeichel was here, it looks like it's going to be his shirt to lose now, doesn't it?
Well, he has got the number 1 on the back of it, so yeah, I think so. That's probably a bit of a clue. But I mean, we said, didn't we, on Saturday, that he'll be much better at controlling the area than Casper ever was. He'd probably never be quite as good a shot stopper as Casper, but we missed that bit of the game at the back. I think having somebody that will give the defenders confidence that can come out and claim the ball. And we didn't concede from a set piece, or look like we were going to concede from a set piece. So that was good. And we scored from one. So
we scored from one, quite the opposite. Yeah. Good to see Timmy Castagna on the score sheet again on the opening day of the season. Elliot, he seems to like it, doesn't he, on the first game? I think he scored against West Brom a couple of years ago on day one. It was a really well worked corner, wasn't it? An attacking header from the near post and sent us all into a bit of delirium.
Yeah, definitely. It's, to be fair to, I think, Madison, who taken the corner, that's a lot of what, when we do our corner routines, that is a lot of what we sort of aim for, whipping it to the near post and someone getting across the defender and heading it across to get it onto the goal. So the frustrating thing is that we don't get it right so often. So it being such a rare event when we do score from the corner. But yeah, it was a fabulous routine in terms of getting the goal. So it's nice to see both attacking and defensively. Steve mentioned it there. I think, there was a couple of nervousness around the ground when the first corner did get conceded. But you saw after those first two or three, and I don't want to put the old mockers on us, but we did look comfortable in each one. Yeah, absolutely. We looked comfortable from each one. It looked like we had a bit more of a structure to what we're doing defensively around the set pieces. And the only thing I'd say defensively, I'd still prefer us to have at least one or two men out on the halfway line. I mean, which you put Pats and Daka up front. I think you've got to start putting Daka and Vardy on the halfway line just to drag a couple of bodies back. But I think from a set pieces, both in attacking and defence, I thought we were much improved and looked solid at back and looked more threatening going forward with them. So hopefully, obviously, once our infamous set piece coach gets his visa sorted, we can start seeing a fair few improvements as well.
What's changed? So we talked a lot about the zonal marking last season. So is that been changed then? So is it man marking or is it the same scenario?
No, it was still zonal. What I noticed, I don't know if you guys can correct me with this, but I felt every ball that came in, there was a real desire to attack the ball from our side. So the first few corners they put in, Vardy was at the front post and he got his head on both of them. And anything that went deeper than that, Danny Ward came and claimed. So I just felt like we had a different mindset in terms of defending the corners.
I think we got better last season as well, to be honest, Barry, towards the end. And we had Fofana, Evans and Ndidi and Vardy all attacking the ball. I can't remember the last time we had Fofana, Evans and Ndidi. Yeah. And all that height there and aggression to attack the ball. So, yeah.
There was definitely attention to detail because Brentford were zonal marking. And Tony's obviously the guy that goes to your post, and Castagna had 5 yard run on that.
Yeah,
and Tony did nothing to it. So it is impressive. At least they've done the homework on that too.
Well, Vardy's normally near post, isn't he? And I think he was as well. So maybe Tony was keeping an eye on him and Castagna snuck up behind him.
It was a good run. Yeah, it was a good run.
What also happened just before that was Fofana sort of went downish on the halfway line. He sort of looked like he was going to go down injured. And then he was late arriving into the box. And I just wonder if some of the eyes that would have been on him before were suddenly on him as the ball was being played in.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, that was
I can't believe that you're highlighting our new corner tactic on the podcast, Mark.
Let's hope Mikel Arteta's not listening. Finding out that before Saturday.
We just have to block him.
So we're relatively happy going into half time. Sun shining, first game of the season. Thought the atmosphere was pretty good as well, guys. Where do you sit, Elliot, by the way, in the ground?
I'm in SK2. So SK2, row LL, and I think it's seat number 155.
So you're near the singing area now, are you?
Yeah, I'm effectively the block along as such. So the atmosphere I thought was much improved compared to last year. And I think it will take a bit of time to bed in and, to get, I think it's the issue is that the group that are there will always be singing their songs. It's just taking it to catch across both the rest of that stand and around the stadium, because once it catches on and goes with it, it can become very loud. It just depends on everyone sort of joining in with them rather than just let them singing around to themselves. So I think from an atmosphere point of view, it was a lot better.
You say you're 155?
Yes.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
That's me, isn't it? 155.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're directly behind us, so you get the same view, but from a higher. Anyway, we'll carry on.
You have the same birthday as well, do you?
Well, it's my birthday next Monday. I hope you guys haven't forgotten that. Silence.
Well, I'm not going to forget. You know that, Mark.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, going to the second half, and we're barely taking our seat again. And Keenan and Dewsbury Hall scored what could only be described as a bit of a rocket. Tom, talk us through that goal and how it happened.
Oh my God. It was a bit of a blur actually, because as you say, it was so soon after kickoff. But I think the guys in midfield, they were just gaining confidence as the first half went on. They were starting to take long pot shots at the goal. I know Yuri had one in the first half that was pretty tasty. That got us going. And yeah, it didn't stop throughout the game actually, the pot shots, until the fatal 30 minutes at the end. But but yeah, the pass on to Dewsbury Hall, to be fair to him, he had a good amount of space. But I can't believe the way he hit it. Like, it was so clean and kept it so low, tucked right into that post. Watching the highlights on Match of the Day, I couldn't believe how far out it was.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It didn't look that far out, did it?
It looked bloody good at the time, but yeah, the distance it gets on that with the power, my God.
I've just got a kid screaming out from upstairs. One of my own, I might add. I'm just gonna. Are you all right? Just to pause, just for a second.
Yeah.
Need to go and find out what's going on.
Super Dad, get it sorted.
What was that, Mark?
Nothing. What did you make to Keenan and Dewsbury Hall's goal?
That was a great strike. Great, as you guys were saying, great power in it and placement. And even though it was from far out, the keeper didn't have a chance. No, really sweet strike. Jimmy Vardy did well, just to have the quick thinking, just to put it in his path. So it was a nice setup. But yeah, I thought it was a great strike and a very good performance from him overall.
Yeah,
until he got taken off.
Until it got taken, we're coming on onto it. Timing is everything, guys. Timing is everything. Barry, was that one of the best goals of the weekend, would you say?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. You don't really hit shots that clean very often. And I couldn't be happier for the guy as well. I'm so glad that happened to him. Because it's the one thing that's probably missing from his game, his goals. And there's nothing.
Isn't he?
Yeah, so this like he's. I think you opened our eyes to him. I don't know how long ago it was, and then just watching him play, and he's earned that shirt, and he must be first choice now midfield. And if he can just start firing in, he doesn't need to be in the double figures by the end of the season, but if he can get between 5 and 10 and keep playing the way he's playing, A would be in England contention. You'd like to think.
I think
carry on. No, carry on.
I was going to say, I think I agree completely with that, and I think where you said about he's now first choice, I think that's a fascinating point, because almost beforehand it was almost a choice between Yuri and Kieran about who played in that midfield. You now have a fascinating point where actually both Dewsbury Hall and Tielemans are almost undroppable. And if you want a sitting midfielder with Ndidi, that makes it then almost affects the rest of the team. But if you wanted to play, let's say our wingers were available, you'd look to maybe play a 4-2-3-1. Well, that means having to shift maybe a Maddison out to the right-hand side of the three rather than being in the middle where he normally plays, because ultimately it now becomes a real interesting point, especially if Tielemans doesn't go this summer, about who plays where, because Sunday was almost an easy way out for Brendan. He didn't have to make a tough decision about who to play. By playing three at the back, it meant he could pick that starting lineup. It allowed him to play those three as a central midfield. I think there is going to come a point where, once Barnes comes back and maybe we can start playing with wingers, there is going to be an interesting discussion about who, as I say, who plays where, and if he tries to play everyone, or if he has to make a tough decision. And if he has to make that tough decision, who's the one that misses out? Because for all intents and purposes, I find it hard to drop Dewsbury Hall in the form he's in.
Yeah, you drop Yuri.
Yuri.
Get rid of Yuri. It's time to bank him, cash in on him and get it on.
Is that
Well, if we can get an offer, if someone puts an offer for him, we might be able to sell him at the moment.
It's always coming next week, isn't it? Apparently, this offer. It's always next week. Never seems to come though.
It's like your mate is always going to pay you back. I'll pay you back next week. I'll pay you back next week.
You're going to put their offer in on Klarna like Newcastle did for Maddison. Can we start the Dewsbury Hall for vice captain conversation again yet, Steve, or is it too early for you?
It's an option. I think it's an option. Why not? He's not been a regular player for a long time. So maybe that's putting a little bit too much pressure on him right now. But certainly I think next season, he should definitely be figuring into that.
I'd vote for him for vice captain. From a Tigers perspective, if I put my Tigers hat back on, one of the successes they have had is about giving, Tigers have got a lot of young lads coming through at 19, 20, 21, 22, and really talented boys coming through from their academy. And one of the things that they have done is put a lot of responsibility onto their shoulders by including them into leadership groups, including them into the analysis sessions that they do after the games, and making them a real big part of what they're trying to do over the last couple of years. I actually think you could take that mentality and give it to someone like a Dewsbury Hall and say, look, you're 22, you've had over a year now of being in the first team. Quite clearly, he's got an old head on young shoulders. Leicester through and through, completely committed. I understand where Steve's coming from, and I appreciate actually there is that concern it could be too much too soon. For me, he's got the makings of someone actually who would flourish with that extra bit of responsibility. And if you said to him, look, go out and be the vice captain, around the group and take on a bit more of a leadership role, I think it would suit him, because with Casper going, you are crying out with a little bit of leadership in the group, not just on the field of play, but in the group around the training ground. We've lost Wes Morgan, we've lost Casper. At some point, Jamie Vardy's going to go as well. So that's another big personality, another big figure that's going to, we're all dreading that day when that day comes, but it is going to be a big loss that goes. So I think you've got to look at one at the here and now, but as a succession planning for the group for the next 3 or 4 years. And I'd be looking at Dewsbury Hall and say, look, go out and be vice captain. Again, that comes back to the previous point of, who he's going to play in the midfield role. So I think that there might be a discussion point about that. But in terms of the question, who should be vice captain, I think as a nice link, as a succession, I would be looking at Dewsbury Hall.
And Barry, you'd take that even further, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think he should be captain. I think he's so robust, and I touch wood. I hope I'm not jinxing the boy, but he's all action. He seems a shouter. He seems like someone that's shouting at everyone. He plays with absolutely out of his skin, and for me, he should be captain. I think he epitomised to me what a captain should be. And who is it? Evans is captain.
Yeah,
but he shouldn't. Well, you're granted he's been great for Leicester when he plays, but that's been few and far between. So you need to have someone that's on the pitch all the time, and not necessarily a starter because he's a favourite, a starter because he earns it and shows that and leads. And I think he is. It's not too soon for him because he's got the mental capacity for it. I think he is the right guy. I think and he'd be so proud of that role, and he would just be phenomenal. And I think, well, actually, maybe there's a cleverness behind it, because Rodgers maybe just thought, well, if we give him vice captain, he doesn't need to take the full responsibility. He might have to cover when Evans is injured and whatnot, and then that's when he can shine. But for me, he is the captain. He should be the captain.
Yeah, he's come out and said, Aidan, he wants to play for the club forever. He just wants to finish his career at Leicester. That's a pretty big statement for a young lad to make, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a pretty huge statement, isn't it? Because he hasn't got a crystal ball, like, we don't know the future, and hopefully he'll continue to progress and become an England regular. But there comes a time where either the club's, well, not so much the club's too good for him, but if things don't go well, will he want to carry on playing for us? But nice sentiment. I wouldn't put too much weight in that yet.
But if you're a club looking for a midfielder and you're looking at Yuri, why wouldn't you be looking at him? Like, other than maybe
it's not for sale.
but other than maybe the range of passing that Yuri does have, like, what does he not have that he's better than Yuri at? I just don't get it. I don't get the money and the hype on Yuri when KDH is a better player in my opinion.
Right, we've done nearly 40 minutes of this podcast. We've not addressed the elephant in the room just yet, so it's probably a good time to. So we're winning 2-1, 73rd minute yesterday, and then a decision was made to take Dewsbury Hall off and put Patson Daka on up front. What did you think to that at the time, Elliot? What was going through your mind in the ground when that happened?
Well, first of all, I was a bit intrigued by Brendan making an attacking substitution at that point, which is he normally packs the midfield with, or just normally goes full on defensive. So it's one of those where I found it strange in terms of if you're going to bring someone off at that point, if you wanted, let's put it this way, if you're determined to put Patson Daka onto the field, taking Dewsbury Hall off is a strange way of going about it, because Vardy at that point had a very quiet game, hadn't really had many touches of the ball and hadn't had much impact in the game. To me, if you wanted Daka on the pitch, it's a like-for-like substitution, because ultimately where we got control of the game was in the midfield positions. We looked fairly comfortable in the midfield, and fair enough, they had just scored. But again, it's a good goal, and we've spoken about all the things that came with that, but it was still fairly against the run of play. It doesn't change the fact that the fundamentals of where we were still in a strong position. And to me, there was 3 or 4 fairly obvious substitutions you could have made that didn't involve taking Dewsbury Hall off for Daka. I mean, if you wanted, as I said, Daka on, Vardy off, that would have been one for me. Maybe something like James Justin off and or Castagno off, and maybe bringing Albrighton on, so you've got a bit of energy up and down the right hand side. You know, Maddison I thought was tiring, so you've got a Jose Perez available to you. To me, that's a like for like substitution. Yuri's in the midfield, maybe struggling because he's with the heat. Again, you've got Dennis Pratt. Indeed, he's given the ball away a few times. Steve's mentioned about the sloppiness in the past, and I think indeed he was fairly guilty on 2 or 3 occasions. We saw his weakness with his distribution come to the fore a little bit. Again, if you think indeed he's struggling in that midfield, you've got Mendy on the bench. So, you know, fundamentally, you've got quite a good setup in terms of the formation and how the game was being played. You didn't really need to go too much outside of that system to make your substitutions. And so it's just bizarre that you only make on a boiling hot day like that, you can see the boys are physically getting tired in front of you, but you only make one substitution. And then the one substitution that you do make is almost a completely wrong. It's just infuriating because it's so much the wrong substitution to make in that situation. Of all the ones you could have made, you do the worst possible one. And I think that's where I come away from yesterday's game, so frustrated, because it was in our grasp. You had the game there. We could all have seen in the ground or watching on or listening in that, you know, there's 3 or 4 substitutions to be made. We're allowed 5 now. Yeah. And of all the things that, you know, of all the decisions you could do, you do nothing or make the completely wrong one. And then even bizarrely, he comes out after the game and says, "Oh, I've identified the issue. The boys were tired." Well, you know, well, brilliant. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Your job is to identify what the problem is and then go and fix it. No point saying, "Oh, well, I found the problem." Well, you didn't do anything about it. You know, it leads to such frustrations I have with yesterday, and it's a discussion for maybe another day, the manager, because ultimately it's hard to defend the bloke when he comes out and says nonsense like that after the game, because all of us can see it.
I'll swap, yeah.
£10 million a year to make that sort of decision. And that, for me, I know you're a bit of a defender of Brendan. Those 2 points dropped were on him yesterday. I can't have that any other way. He had the elements at his disposal to make sure that didn't happen, and it left it. And then said afterwards, as Elliot just said, "Well, the lads were a bit tired." I said to Tom halfway through the second half, they've made 5 subs, we've made 1. The basic science of this is going to be they're going to be fresher. You can change half your side now. It's just madness to me that he made that call yesterday.
Yeah, no, I agree. I normally will defend Rodgers because he gets an unfair slagging at times. But yeah, first game of the season, players obviously struggling. A very hot game. They've got a load of fresh legs, and we don't respond. So that's down to the manager for sure. Maybe some of the mistakes and the sloppiness aren't down to him, but he could well have put Mendy on, Pratt on, Perez, maybe even Samare instead of Ndidi, another option. He could have freshened it up, but he didn't. And it is bizarre because it's not like we've got poor substitutes anymore.
No, I agree with that. I think that's a really good point. Is that for all the talk about the weakness of maybe the squad overall, or we need to make some changes. If you look at the team and the bench that was selected yesterday, you know, that forms pretty much the squad you'd want to make. If you're talking about rebuilding the squad, the 18 lads that were selected yesterday would form the backbone of that. I mean, you'd throw in Ricardo and you'd throw in Harvey Barnes, obviously. And that gives you your 20 lads that you'd want to build a squad around. Obviously, you'd want to make some improvements on that. Obviously, you'd want to upgrade Marty or Perez or Mendy or whoever. But fundamentally, those 20 there is of what a really good squad you've got. You have the 5 or 6 that you want to move on are the ones that weren't featured yesterday. They're the boys that are maybe blocking squad development. They're the ones that you're probably trying to shift and trying to get out of the way. So there's an argument which a few fans have sort of put forward about yesterday, that he was playing games or, you know, trying to prove a point to the ownership. But it's a very dangerous game to get into for numerous reasons. And one, because, you know, you're upsetting the lads that aren't getting on. You know, if you're not getting on in that situation, you are going to feel fairly hacked off, and you're going to feel a bit disillusioned with things. But more importantly, the team he's picked is good enough. You know, if you're telling me that the 18 you've not picked yesterday isn't good enough to beat Brentford at home, again, it leaves yourself open to criticism. And if you're the owners in that situation and your manager goes, oh, well, I didn't make any substitutions because my bench isn't good enough, you'd look at who's on the bench and you'd go, we've got an issue here. To me, that to me is where if your manager gets sacked, if the manager starts saying things like that, that is a big worry to me. Or if that's the game he's trying to play, and I'm not sure what he is, so I reserve judgment on that. It is a dangerous route to start going down if you're starting to try to send messages to the management, because
I doubt it, Elliot. I doubt it. I mean, but if I was Pratt or Samori and I've had a good pre-season, I'd be a bit pissed off at not getting.
Samori wasn't even in the squad yesterday.
I know, but I'd get pissed off at not getting some game time as a result of putting in some performances. And I would think if he wants to prove a point, he brings 5 subs on and we throw the game away. That's how he would prove a point, not by not bringing them on.
No, I have to say, I think the way Roger's been talking, he's very, very similar to Mourinho, man. I think like he is that. I think he was making a point yesterday. He obviously didn't want to throw away the points, of course he didn't. But if like I didn't watch the game, so if you guys are talking about players being tired and that, like I said, the bench is very strong to replace like for like. There isn't really a position where they could do like for like. But he was making a point. I totally believe that's what he was. The way he's been talking pre-season, the thing that pisses me off about it, right, is I've been watching the media and whatever, a lot of pundits saying that Leicester are going to be struggling at the bottom and struggling in the bottom half. They shouldn't be. If they've got a fully fit squad, the squad's awesome. The squad is awesome. There's no denying that bench is a good bench. You can replace like for like and change formations wherever we want to, go the way they were, or throw on Nacho or whatever to make it 2 up top. That squad is ace. There is a couple of upgrades that are there to be had, and maybe there's a couple of players that played with their mind elsewhere. But realistically, Rodgers is just throwing the toys at the pram, in my opinion. And he's just like, I want more players. These players don't want to be here, so we're about to get whatever money for Fana's going to go. Like Chelsea will get their man. They fannied about with Cucurella. They're not going to do that again. They're just going to say, what is it you want for Fana? Here you go. That's going to happen. So Rodgers needs to prepare for that. But there's something about him. The way he's talking, he has got a petulant side to him and a bit of an arrogant side to him. But the way he's been talking pre-season for me, it does sound like he's doing that Mourinho, I'm not getting what I want, I'm not getting backed by the board, yada, yada, yada. I don't have the players for it. When most squads in that league would absolutely cry for a squad that you guys have got. It just doesn't sit right with me. And his attitude stinks, and I think it will flow through the players eventually.
I think we'll leave it at that point, guys. In terms of yesterday, we play a game on this show every episode, Elliot, called Last Man Standing. So one of the guys will prepare a question, usually me. However, tonight it's not. Aidan, you couldn't be bothered to do it. So
I did it on Saturday, all right. I'm not your Irish slave.
So to respond to that. So there's going to be a question. The last person that's left in at the end will be the winner, and our guest has won the first one of the season. So if you beat us tonight, that's going to be a double whammy for us to start with. Steve, you've got the question, haven't you?
I have got a question, and Well, to do with the great success of the English women winning the Euros and whatever, I was interested in how many England players are in the squads of the current Premier League and Championship teams, and I was thinking out of a squad of 25, 28, whatever you're allowed, there's got to be at least 12, hasn't there? Right, but out of those Premier League teams and Championship teams, there's 21 clubs, teams that don't have 13 or more English players listed as per Sports Mole today, excluding players out on loan, but including players that they've got in on loan. Okay.
So what are you asking? Sorry.
So what I want you to do
do
is name the 21 teams in the Premier League and Championship that don't have 13 or more English players registered in their squad as per
women
today.
The women's.
No, men.
Oh.
And I'm going to start with Mark.
Chelsea.
Chelsea only have 11. You're through to the next round. Next, as I'm going around the screen, it's Baz.
Has to be Wolves.
Wolves actually only have 5. And so you're through to the next round. Tom.
I don't know why, but I'm going to go Watford.
Watford only have 9, so well done. One of the Championship teams that don't have many English players. Aidan.
Go for Arsenal.
Arsenal is a correct answer. Well done. You're through. And Elliot.
I'm a bit annoyed because I had Chelsea and Arsenal as my first 2 picks. So Brighton.
Brighton. Actually, you're right. So you're through to the next round. Back to Mark.
Normally, Elliot would let the guest go first. Steve's just forgotten his manners tonight, so I apologise on behalf.
I'm not offended. Don't worry. Don't worry.
I'll go Manchester City.
Manchester City is a correct answer. Baz?
Spurs.
Spurs is a correct answer. Tom?
I'll go Everton.
Everton is a correct answer.
Well, we're doing well, boys.
Aidan?
Manchester United.
Manchester United is an incorrect answer. They have 14 English players in their squad. So that's you out. Elliot?
Yeah.
I'm going to go West Ham.
West Ham is a correct answer. Mark?
Liverpool.
Liverpool. I'm sorry, Mark, but Liverpool is a correct answer. Baz?
Leicester.
Leicester. Yeah, the Foxes do not have that many English players in their squad. Tom?
Go to Newcastle.
That's you out, Tom, I'm afraid. They do.
You know, you said Watford before. You really need to see Watford's goal against West Brom tonight, by the way. Anyone that's listening to this afterwards.
Yeah.
Ismail Assar has picked the ball up inside his own half and driven it over the keeper's head from about 65 yards.
He's surely not there by the end of the transfer window. He has to be away from there.
An absolutely incredible strike. Sorry, carry on.
Maybe is one we should be after if we can sell anyone. Elliot.
Steve, how many's left?
How many's left? Let me have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Wow.
Elliot.
Well, Baz has pinned Leicester, so I'm going to return the favour and say Villa don't have the required amount.
They just do, actually. So
no way.
So, Mark, down to you and Baz.
Forest.
Forest, you're out. So that leaves Barry the winner. Can you give us another one, Barry?
Leeds.
Yes.
Leeds is the correct answer. So you deserve that victory by
Do
following
you
that
want some more? Do you want some more?
Nice.
Yeah, go on,
QPR.
see if you can get some more, yeah.
Huddersfield.
No, they've actually got 17 English players.
Oh, I thought that was a good one. I thought that was my sneaky answer.
Go on then, give us a real quick rundown of them.
The ones that you've missed, Brentford only have 7 English players in their
that's surprising.
squad. Yeah. Crystal Palace have 11.
Oh, of course.
Southampton only have 11. Wolves were the lowest with 5, by the way. And if we go into the Championship, Burnley with 11.
No way.
QPR.
Norwich with 12. And one that surprised me, Preston only had 8 English players in their squad. Swansea 11 and Wigan 11.
How many did we have, Steve, out of interest?
9.
Very good. Well done, Barry, on your first win of the season.
You're welcome.
First win for Aston Villa anyway. Work a lot better if we had thrown away a 2-goal lead, wouldn't it? Just briefly, we're coming towards the end of the show. Just had an email through saying we're still charted in Nigeria for the podcast. So we're still in the top 100 podcasts in Nigeria.
Thanks, Wolf.
So all that money I sent to that Nigerian prince has worked out.
It's paid off.
I thought he was supposed to be sending it to you.
Oh shit, yeah.
Good morning, madam.
Just really quickly, for a couple of minutes before we finish off, we've got Arsenal next Saturday. Steve, how are you feeling about that game? Do you think we can go there and get something? We rarely do.
I think Arsenal are probably going to put in some performances this year. So I think it's going to be difficult. But I'm not, people say, we're going to get rushed after Brentford. I'm not so down about that. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think we'll probably lose. But I think we'll give a good account of ourselves. I think it might be 2-1 to Arsenal or something like that.
Yeah, Arsenal, I think they put in a decent performance on their Friday night football, didn't they? They've got some decent signings. It could be, Elliot, that Yuri Tillemans potentially might line up against us on Saturday if they pull their finger out and put a bid in. That would be strange, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm not sure that's going to happen just yet. I think they're going to mess us around all month before they decide to put a bid in. I agree with what you said there and what Steve said. I think Arsenal, to be fair and annoyingly, both North London clubs look in fairly good shape as you go into the season. And both seem to have recruited well and both seem to have starting to develop some good patterns of play. So I think this weekend is going to be a tough game forward. I think the afternoon is really going to depend on which Leicester City side turn up. If it's the one from the first 60 minutes from yesterday, you'd be confident of giving ourselves a good showing and potentially nicking a point or maybe a little bit more because, as much as there's a bit of doom and gloom around yesterday, there's still for the first 60 minutes a lot of things to be positive about. We were solid at the back. I thought our patterns of play going forward was really good and some of our passing was fantastic. So if you take that forward into that game, you can cause Arsenal a bit of trouble. And like you said, you can be confident that you make life difficult for them and try and sneak something. If it's the Leicester from the last half an hour that turned up yesterday, it's hard to see us getting many results across the season. And again, the weekend coming up leaves yesterday a bit more frustrating because it'd be nice to go into a tough away game like that with 3 points in the back pocket to have that banked because we know that we've got some tough games in the first few fixtures. So it does feel a little bit frustrating yesterday because it'd be nice just to go into it with a bit of confidence, a bit of the pressure took off us and to go into it with a positive mindset. So we'll see how we get on. So let's.
How are we going to get on? Are you going to give us a prediction? Do you do predictions?
Yeah, I to be honest, I think Steve's prediction of a 2-1 isn't too far off. I do think we'll score. I'm fairly confident of how we played yesterday. We can create some chances, so I think we'll score. It's just whether we can tighten up against a team that's going to test us defensively. So, yeah, I think if it's 1-1 with 10 minutes to go, I can't see us holding out. I think after yesterday shows that we're not a backs to the wall team. A bit of pressure that comes on us, we do struggle with that. We do need to be as far. We do probably need a bit of a head start at the moment to get through it.
Okay. Did you give a prediction there? Sorry.
Yeah, 2-1. I'm backing one with
2-1.
Steve on that.
You're going with Steve. Aidan, you writing them down here? Would you like to give an update on the prediction league so far?
Let me just check. Prediction so far, no one's got any points apart from Aidan McCormick, who's sitting with 3 points. So Steve Marple says 2-1 Arsenal. Elliot says 2-1 Arsenal. I'm going to stick my neck out and say that we can come back with a point. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I did watch Arsenal on Friday night and they looked good. This guy that they've got, he's come back from Marseille on loan after like a lot of years, Saliba. Was looking very strong. So they look a bit more, they've got a bit more metal. But then, is it Ben White? Didn't have a great game. So I think we can get at them. I think we can go down and take a point. 1-1.
I'm going to go 1-1 as well. I'm going to go with a battle of the opposite of mentality monsters, and because whoever concedes first in that may well crumble. Or in our case, if we score first, we may well crumble. So I'll go with a 1-1 draw. But I think it'll be an entertaining game. I think Arsenal are a different animal this year. I think now they've got Jisoo and Zinchenko, and they've sort of balanced their centre backs a little bit more as well with Saliba coming in. I think they're a bit of a different animal, so I think we'll give them a good game, and I'm going to go for a hopeful point. Barry, you were shaking your head when we were talking positively about getting.
It wasn't that positive. I think Leicester will do them. I think there's too much hype about these two in the back for the what's his name?
Saliba.
Yeah, and Ben White. Yeah, no. From what I saw of the game, Palace had the chances, ran them ragged. I think you start with the same team, maybe drop Amate. Start with the same team and take them on. Vardy. I think Leicester are the Achilles heel of Arsenal. I think I'm going to go 3-1 Leicester. I think you're going to get. Yeah, I think you're going to get a couple early. I've been watching sort of Arsenal Twitter and that, and they were not happy with that performance. I think they're fucking banger FC, aren't they? They're idiots. I think they're so quick to jump on. This is actually hypocritical me saying it. So quick to jump on a negative about their club that it was poor, and they were poor. Any other team other than Palace, Palace just don't have that grit that you need against Arsenal. You need to have a bit of bite, and unless they've got that in abundance, and I think, I think Leicester will do them over, and it'll be the start of that fucking idiotic TV channel going crazy, mental again. I can't wait for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Let's hope it's not us that goes into meltdown. Tom, finally to you.
Well, I think Barry's just converted me because I was. I've been slightly concerned about the next game coming up, but they have got a bit of a tasty squad this season, and I think they have got massive potential to be up there. But you've spun me around there, Barry. I'm going to go with 2-1 to Leicester.
Yes, Tom.
Some points going elsewhere again for the old prediction league. I guess we'll be winning it this season. Guys, that's about all we've got time for again tonight. An hour has absolutely flown by again. Elliot, thanks so much for joining us. What's coming up for you now with the podcasts and with the blog?
Well, I go away on holiday for a couple of weeks now, so
off anywhere nice?
St Kitts and Nevis. So looking forward to that. So I won't really be thinking about much more than where's the next rum and coke coming from, to be fair, for the next couple of weeks. But I'm trying hard for sports teams not to any of my sports teams to upset me. But for me, I mean, once we get back, it'd be obviously rugby season starts back up. So into pre-season with Tigers with the friendlies, so picking that and the podcast back up, and hopefully League Cup will be around the corner as well for our entry in. So hopefully we can start cracking on with a bit of a cup run to. We've been too long without a League Cup, so I think we need to concentrate on that a little bit this season. But when we get back, hopefully we can get into some into the fixtures again.
You guys are greedy.
Hard not to be.
Optimistic. Thanks so much for joining us anyway tonight. It's been a pleasure to have you on with us. Hopefully you'll come and join us again at some point this season. And
thank you very much for having me. I hope I can be invited back.
Yeah, you've been great, guys. It's been great again. We'll all join together for another episode next week. But that is all we've got time for this week's episode of It's 11 at 7 for Jamie Vardy. We'll speak to you again next time.
Bye.
Lovely. Cheers, Elliot. Thanks for
Cheers, Elliot.
Yeah, nice one, mate.
No,
thank you, Elliot. Nice to see you.
No, thank you very much. And